Casey's biggest hits.
7 years ago this week, back in 1987, one of the biggest hits in the USA was a smash by Whitney Houston, a song that took more than 5 years to write. The song's writers didn't finally get it down until Whitney told them she wanted it. I'll have details and that big hit after this.
American Top 40.
This is Charlie Van Dyke for Kasem, and we're on our way to the #1 song in the USA. Now, we're up to the recent #1 song that cost big bucks in phone bills to write. The song is sung by Whitney Houston, and it was written by two men, Will Jennings and Michael Masser. And the story is sort of a different kind of long-distance dedication. You see, Will Jennings is a pretty accomplished lyricist, having written #1 song lyrics for Steve Winwood and Barry Manilow, to name a couple. Michael Masser is an equally accomplished music composer, and he's written for Diana Ross and George Benson. So back in 1981, these two decided to get together at Michael's studio in Los Angeles and maybe write a few songs. Well, out of that meeting came the beginnings of a song, the very beginnings. They wrote maybe a couple of lines, part of a melody, and the title, Didn't We Almost Have It All? And that was all. Well, 3 years go by, it's 1984, and Michael decides he'd like to finish the song, so he tracks down Will. Tracks him down to a yacht docked in Key West, Florida. Will finds a phone booth down the street from where the yacht is docked, and they establish their songwriting technique. Michael, who's still back in Los Angeles, would lay the telephone receiver down on his piano, and Will, back in the phone booth, would scream the lyrics to him. Well, that cost him a few $100, and they got a few more lines written. Okay, now fast forward to 1986. Will is now in Nashville. Michael's still back in L.A. A few more lines are written, and they run up a few more $100 in phone calls. Then Will Jennings told us, we finally met up in Los Angeles. We put the finishing touches on the song, and we'd come full circle. It had taken 6 years, but we had written a hit song to the tune of about $1,000 in phone bills. That's Will Jennings and Michael Masser, a dedicated long-distance songwriting team. Whitney Houston reached out and touched everyone with the song they wrote. It hit #1, now at number 24. Didn't we almost have it all?
Casey's biggest hits.
6 years ago this week, back in 1987, one of the biggest hits in the USA was Didn't We Almost Have It All? A #1 smash whose writers began it in London and finished it in Nashville more than a decade later. I'll have details in that big hit after this.
Casey's biggest hits.
6 years ago this week, back in 1987, one of the biggest hits in the USA was Didn't We Almost Have It All? A #1 smash whose writers began it in London and finished it in Nashville more than a decade later. Over the years, we've told stories of hits that were written in just 10 minutes, but there are also hits that take 10 years, a whole decade to get it right. In the case of this #1 smash, the songwriting team of Michael Masser and Will Jennings came up with the idea in 1975 while they were working in England. They sketched it out, but never completed it. And over the years, they kept rewriting it, a line here, a word there, but they just couldn't finish it. They say they spent hundreds of dollars on phone calls, and finally, in 1986, they met in Nashville and put the final touches on the words and music. 6 years ago this week, the song that took a decade to write was one of the biggest hits in the USA. Here's Didn't We Almost Have It All by Whitney Houston.
The way you used to touch me felt so fine, kept our hearts together. Down the line, a moment in the soul can last forever. Comfort and keep us. Help me bring the feeling back again.
And the survey continues.
Casey's Countdown.